stop for just a moment because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you see your life, your relationships, and the silence you've been trying to understand. Have you ever felt as though someone was thinking about you, even when there was no message, no phone call, and no visible sign? Have you ever sensed that something important was happening beneath the surface, even though the world around you looked exactly the same? What if that feeling wasn't your imagination? What if at this very moment someone deeply connected to your journey is experiencing an emotional shift they can no longer ignore? Most people believe that love begins when two people meet. But the deepest connections begin much earlier, in the unseen places where fear transforms into courage, where pain becomes wisdom, and where two lives unknowingly prepare for the same destination. While you continue living your daily routine, invisible changes may already be unfolding, quietly bringing two paths closer together. Today's message is not about fantasy or empty promises. It is about understanding the hidden transformations that often take place before life's biggest turning points arrive. Stay with me until the very end, because each insight builds upon the last, and the final message may completely reshape the way you understand timing, emotional growth, and the quiet power of a connection that refuses to disappear. Sometimes the greatest chapter of your life begins long before you realize the story has already changed. There are moments in life when nothing seems to be happening on the surface, yet everything is changing beneath it. Human beings often judge reality only by what they can see, hear, or touch. They believe that silence means distance, that absence means disinterest, and that unanswered questions mean nothing is unfolding. Yet the deepest transformations rarely announce themselves with noise. They begin quietly, almost invisibly, in places the conscious mind cannot easily observe. The bond between two souls is much like the roots of an ancient tree. Before anyone notices the branches stretching toward the sky, the roots have already traveled through darkness, finding one another beneath the earth. You may believe that your connection has weakened because days have passed without a sign, without a message, or without an explanation. But the invisible part of every relationship carries far more weight than the visible one. Every meaningful connection begins long before two people fully understand what they feel. It grows through shared emotions, remembered moments, silent reflections, and the quiet recognition that someone has left an imprint no amount of distance can erase. The heart often understands what the mind is still trying to deny. This invisible bond does not demand constant communication to remain alive. Instead, it exists in subtle moments that appear ordinary but carry extraordinary meaning. A familiar song suddenly brings someone's face into your thoughts. A place once forgotten begins calling your attention again. An emotion appears without explanation, as though another heart has gently brushed against your own. These experiences are rarely accidents. They reveal that the deepest parts of the human psyche remain connected through memory, emotion, and unconscious recognition long after circumstances have changed. Many people spend their lives searching for proof before they allow themselves to believe. They wait for certainty before trusting what they already feel inside. Yet the inner world has always spoken through symbols rather than facts. Dreams, repeated patterns, meaningful coincidences, and persistent feelings often emerge when something significant is unfolding beneath conscious awareness. These quiet signals invite you to look beyond appearances and recognize that not everything important can be measured by immediate evidence. The awakening of an invisible bond is not about fantasy or wishful thinking. It is about recognizing how deeply one person can influence another without speaking a single word. Every genuine encounter leaves a psychological imprint. A meaningful connection reshapes beliefs, changes priorities, softens defenses, and awakens parts of the personality that had remained asleep for years. Even separation cannot completely erase the effect of someone who has transformed your inner world. What has touched the soul continues to echo, even when life appears silent. This is why many people experience periods where they feel pulled toward personal growth without fully understanding why. They begin healing old wounds, releasing old fears, questioning old habits, and discovering a stronger version of themselves. They may believe these changes are happening independently, but often an unseen connection acts as the quiet catalyst. The presence of another soul, even from afar, can inspire courage, patience, compassion, and transformation in ways the conscious mind cannot immediately explain. As this invisible bond awakens, it gradually replaces fear with quiet confidence. Instead of chasing answers, the heart becomes more patient. Instead of forcing outcomes, it begins trusting the natural rhythm of life. The connection no longer depends on constant reassurance because something deeper already taken root. It becomes less about holding on through fear and more about allowing what is genuine to reveal itself in its own time. knowing that what is truly meaningful often grows strongest where it cannot yet be seen. One of the greatest misunderstandings about love is the belief that two people simply need to find each other for everything to fall into place. While attraction may happen in an instant, lasting connection is rarely created that way. A meaningful relationship asks each person to become someone capable of receiving, giving, and protecting genuine love. Before two lives can move together in harmony, each individual is often invited into a season of inner transformation. This process is not always comfortable, but it is necessary because love that is built on an unstable foundation cannot remain strong when life becomes difficult. Many people spend years believing that another person will heal the emptiness they carry inside. They search for someone who will erase loneliness, silence, insecurity, or remove every fear they have about themselves. Yet emotional wounds do not disappear simply because someone enters our lives. They often become more visible. Relationships have a remarkable way of reflecting the parts of ourselves that we have ignored. They reveal hidden fears of rejection, abandonment, inadequacy, and loss. What once remained buried beneath everyday routines suddenly rises to the surface, asking to be understood rather than avoided. This is why periods of waiting can become unexpectedly valuable. While the mind sees delay as disappointment, the deeper self often recognizes it as preparation. During these quiet seasons, people begin confronting habits that once controlled them. They learn to release the constant need for approval, stop defining their worth through another person's attention, and discover a sense of peace that does not depend on external validation. Instead of becoming emotionally dependent, they gradually develop emotional stability. Instead of reacting from fear, they begin responding with wisdom and patience. Real transformation is rarely dramatic. It unfolds through countless small decisions made every day. Choosing forgiveness over resentment, choosing honesty over pretending, choosing courage instead of remaining trapped by familiar fears. Every small act of growth strengthens the inner foundation upon which future relationships will stand. Although these changes may seem unrelated to love, they quietly prepare the heart for a healthier connection when the right moment arrives. Many people believe they have lost something precious when someone steps away from their lives. Yet distance often creates the very conditions needed for deeper understanding without constant distraction. Both individuals are given the opportunity to examine themselves honestly. Old beliefs are questioned. Emotional patterns become easier to recognize. Pain that was once ignored can finally be acknowledged. This period of self-discovery may feel lonely, but loneliness often becomes the place where the strongest version of a person is quietly formed. As healing continues, priorities naturally begin to change. What once seemed urgent no longer feels important. The desire to control every outcome slowly fades. Instead of chasing certainty, people become more comfortable with trust. Instead of forcing connections, they allow relationships to develop naturally. This shift is significant because genuine love cannot thrive where fear constantly demands guarantees. It flourishes where two emotionally mature people choose one another freely rather than desperately. Personal growth also creates greater compassion. When someone has faced their own weaknesses, they become less interested in judging the imperfections of others. They begin understanding that everyone carries invisible struggles, hidden disappointments, and silent battles. This deeper empathy transforms relationships because it replaces unrealistic expectations with patience and understanding. Love becomes less about demanding perfection and more about supporting growth through acceptance and respect. The journey inward is never separate from the journey toward meaningful connection. Every lesson learned, every fear released, and every emotional wound healed quietly reshapes the person you are becoming. By the time two paths are ready to meet again, the individuals standing at that moment are often very different from the ones who first crossed paths, carrying hearts that are stronger, wiser, and far more capable of building a love that can endure the changing seasons of life. There comes a quiet moment in every meaningful connection when joy begins long before anything has visibly changed. It does not arrive because every problem has been solved or because every question has been answered. Instead, it emerges from a deeper place within the human heart, a place that recognizes truth before the conscious mind can fully explain it. This kind of joy is not loud or impulsive. It is calm, steady, and deeply rooted, growing from the realization that something truly valuable is moving closer, even if the outer world has not yet revealed it. Recognition is one of the most powerful experiences a person can have. It is the feeling of encountering someone or something that awakens a forgotten part of yourself. Sometimes this recognition happens in a single conversation, a brief glance, or an unexpected memory that refuses to fade. It is not always logical and it cannot be forced. The heart simply knows when it has encountered a connection that carries unusual depth. That recognition becomes a quiet source of hope, even during periods of uncertainty. Many people confuse joy with excitement. Excitement depends on immediate results and visible progress. It rises quickly and often fades just as fast. Joy is different. It is able to exist even in silence because it is connected to meaning rather than circumstances. A person may continue with daily responsibilities, speak very little about their emotions and appear completely ordinary on the outside, while inwardly carrying a growing sense that life is gently moving toward an important turning point. This quiet confidence often becomes stronger than fear because it is built upon inner recognition instead of external proof. When someone begins to recognize the significance of a deep emotional bond, their perspective slowly changes. They become less interested in temporary distractions and more attentive to what truly matters. Small moments begin carrying greater meaning. They notice how certain memories continue returning, how particular lessons repeat themselves, and how personal growth seems to prepare them for something they cannot yet fully see. Rather than viewing these experiences as random, they begin understanding them as signs that their inner world is becoming more aligned with their authentic self. Recognition also transforms the way a person relates to uncertainty. Instead of constantly searching for reassurance, they become more willing to trust the natural unfolding of life. They understand that not every answer needs to arrive immediately. Some truths reveal themselves gradually, becoming clearer with time and experience. This patience is not passive. It reflects growing emotional maturity. The need to control every outcome begins to fade because the individual has discovered a deeper sense of stability within themselves. Joy born from recognition is also deeply connected to gratitude. When people recognize the value of a meaningful connection, they often become more appreciative of their own journey. Even painful experiences begin to take on new meaning because they contributed to personal growth and emotional understanding. Past disappointments no longer appear as meaningless losses, but as experiences that shaped wisdom, resilience, and compassion. This shift allows the heart to remain open instead of becoming hardened by previous pain. As this recognition deepens, it naturally influences thoughts, choices, and attitudes. Fear gradually gives way to hope, impatience softens into trust, and doubt loses much of its power. The heart no longer depends entirely on visible confirmation because it has discovered something far more enduring. The quiet certainty that genuine connections leave lasting impressions, and that the deepest forms of joy often begin the moment a soul recognizes what has been true all along. Fear has a quiet way of shaping human behavior without announcing its presence. It rarely introduces itself openly. Instead, it disguises itself as caution, pride, emotional distance, or the need to remain in control. Many people believe they are protecting themselves when they avoid vulnerability. But in reality, they are often protecting old wounds that have never fully healed. These invisible barriers become walls built not against strangers, but against the possibility of being deeply known and genuinely loved. Emotional resistance develops over time. It is created through painful experiences, broken trust, unmet expectations, and moments when the heart learned that opening itself could lead to disappointment. After enough difficult experiences, the mind begins creating patterns designed to prevent future pain. A person may stop expressing their feelings, convince themselves they no longer need anyone, or hide behind endless distractions to avoid facing emotions they find uncomfortable. While these defenses may provide temporary safety, they also prevent authentic connection from growing. Every meaningful relationship eventually encounters these inner walls. It is not because the connection is weak, but because genuine closeness naturally exposes what has remained hidden. When another person begins reaching the deeper parts of our emotional world, the fears we believed were forgotten often return. Fear of rejection may whisper that love will not last. Fear of abandonment may create unnecessary distance before anyone has the chance to leave. Fear of inadequacy may convince someone they are not worthy of being fully accepted. These reactions are not signs that love is impossible. They are signs that healing is still taking place. The remarkable thing about emotional resistance is that it cannot survive forever when a person becomes willing to face themselves honestly. Growth begins with awareness. Instead of blaming circumstances or other people for every emotional struggle, individuals slowly recognize the patterns they have carried within. They begin asking difficult questions about why certain situations trigger intense reactions, why trust feels so difficult, or why they repeatedly expect disappointment even when no clear evidence exists. These moments of honest reflection become the first cracks in walls that once seemed impossible to break. Healing does not require perfection. It requires courage. Courage to admit past pain without allowing it to define the future. Courage to acknowledge fear without surrendering to it. Courage to remain emotionally present even when certainty cannot be guaranteed. As this courage develops, old defenses begin losing their purpose. The heart discovers that vulnerability is not weakness but strength, because it allows genuine understanding, compassion, and intimacy to emerge where isolation once existed. As emotional resistance fades, people often notice subtle changes within themselves. They become less reactive during moments of uncertainty. Conversations become more honest because there is less need to hide behind carefully constructed masks. Forgiveness becomes easier, not because painful memories disappear, but because they no longer control every decision. Instead of constantly preparing for loss, the mind begins making space for possibility. This shift creates an emotional environment where trust can slowly grow. The release of resistance also transforms the way individuals view love itself. Instead of seeing love as something fragile that must be controlled, they begin understanding it as something strengthened by authenticity and mutual growth. They no longer seek perfection in themselves or in another person. They recognize that meaningful relationships are built through patience, understanding, accountability, and the willingness to keep growing together. The walls that once separated two hearts gradually lose their power, replaced by openness, emotional maturity, and the quiet confidence that genuine connection becomes strongest when fear no longer decides how the heart should respond. Life often appears to move through random events, unexpected delays, surprising encounters, and sudden changes that seem unrelated to one another. From the surface, every experience can feel isolated, as though each moment exists without purpose beyond itself. Yet, when we look back over the course of our lives, a different picture begins to emerge. Moments that once seemed meaningless reveal themselves as essential turning points. A conversation that lasted only a few minutes changes an entire direction. A closed door leads to an opportunity that never would have appeared otherwise. A painful goodbye becomes the beginning of profound personal growth. What once looked like disorder slowly reveals a quiet pattern woven beneath the visible events of everyday life. Many people become discouraged because they expect life to unfold according to their own timetable. They believe that if something important has not happened yet, then it may never happen at all. This belief often creates unnecessary frustration, causing them to overlook the quiet progress taking place beneath the surface. Growth is rarely measured only by visible achievements. Sometimes the most significant movement occurs internally, where beliefs are changing, emotional wounds are healing, and perspectives are becoming clearer. While nothing dramatic appears to be happening on the outside, an entirely new foundation is being built within. Every experience contributes something valuable to the person you are becoming. Success teaches confidence, but disappointment often teaches wisdom. Moments of certainty provide comfort, while periods of uncertainty develop resilience. Even the people who enter your life briefly leave behind lessons that shape your understanding of yourself and others. No meaningful experience is completely wasted. Each one quietly prepares you for situations that lie ahead, often in ways you cannot recognize until much later. There are also moments when life seems to remove certain opportunities or relationships without explanation. At first, these losses may appear unfair or deeply confusing. The natural response is often to question why something important was taken away. Yet time has a remarkable ability to reveal perspectives that pain initially hides. What felt like rejection may have been protection. What seemed like failure may have redirected you toward a path far better suited to your growth. What appeared to be an ending may have simply created the space necessary for something more meaningful to emerge. The human mind naturally seeks immediate answers because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. It wants every event to make sense as soon as it happens. However, many of life's deepest lessons cannot be understood in the present moment. They require distance, reflection, and experience before their significance becomes clear. Patience, therefore, is not passive waiting. It is the willingness to continue growing even when the full picture remains hidden. It is trusting that understanding often arrives after the journey has already transformed you. As people mature emotionally, they begin noticing patterns that once escaped their attention. Encounters that seemed accidental reveal surprising connections. Skills learned during difficult seasons become exactly what is needed for future opportunities. Emotional strength developed through previous struggles becomes the source of stability during new challenges. Gradually, life begins to feel less like a collection of unrelated events and more like a carefully unfolding story where every chapter contributes to the one that follows. This perspective changes the way a person approaches the future. Instead of reacting with fear whenever plans change, they become more open to possibilities they had never considered. Unexpected detours no longer appear only as obstacles, but also as invitations to discover hidden strengths and unexplored paths. Confidence begins to replace anxiety because they understand that not every important step needs to be planned in advance. Some of life's most meaningful moments arrive quietly, shaped by countless unseen experiences that have been preparing both the heart and the mind long before the opportunity finally appears. There are certain moments in life that seem ordinary while they are happening, yet they quietly become the dividing line between the person you once were and the person you are about to become. These moments rarely announce themselves with certainty. They often arrive disguised as a simple decision, an unexpected conversation, a brief encounter, or a quiet realization that changes the direction of everything that follows. What appears small on the surface can carry the power to reshape an entire future. Because the greatest transformations usually begin with a single step taken at the right time. Many people spend years believing that life changes only through dramatic events. They imagine that every meaningful turning point must be accompanied by obvious signs or extraordinary circumstances. In reality, lasting change often begins within the human heart, long before the outer world reflects it. A person decides to stop living in fear. They choose forgiveness instead of resentment. They release the need to control every outcome and become willing to trust the natural unfolding of life. These inner decisions may seem invisible to everyone else, but they create powerful shifts that influence every choice made afterward. When someone reaches this point of inner clarity, their actions naturally begin to reflect their transformation. They communicate more honestly because they are no longer hiding behind fear. They become more patient because they understand that meaningful relationships cannot be rushed. They stop chasing constant reassurance because their confidence is no longer dependent on external validation. Instead of acting from insecurity, they begin responding from a place of emotional balance and quiet strength. This change is often noticed by others before the individual fully recognizes it within themselves. Meaningful connections are deeply influenced by these moments of personal evolution. When two people have both experienced genuine inner growth, the dynamic between them begins to change naturally. Conversations become more authentic, misunderstandings lose much of their power because both individuals have learned the value of listening rather than assuming. Old patterns of fear, avoidance, or emotional defensiveness begin to fade, making space for mutual respect and deeper understanding. The relationship no longer depends on unrealistic expectations, but grows through honesty, patience, and shared emotional maturity. Life also has a remarkable way of presenting opportunities when people are finally prepared to recognize them. The same situation that once created confusion may suddenly become clear because the person experiencing it has changed. What was previously overlooked now appears meaningful. What once inspired fear now encourages courage. The opportunity itself may not have changed at all. The individual has. This is why personal growth often transforms circumstances that once seemed impossible to navigate. Every important decision creates a ripple that extends far beyond the present moment. A single act of courage can inspire countless future choices. One honest conversation can restore trust that seemed permanently lost. One moment of vulnerability can replace years of emotional distance with genuine understanding. The future is rarely shaped by one dramatic event alone, but by the accumulation of small, meaningful decisions made with awareness and sincerity. Each step taken with wisdom quietly prepares the way for the next, allowing life's most significant chapters to unfold with purpose, depth, and lasting meaning. As we reach the end of this reflection, remember that the most meaningful changes in life often begin long before they become visible. Every moment of growth, every lesson learned, every fear overcome, and every step toward becoming your true self is shaping a future you may not yet fully understand. If your heart has been asking questions, let patience become your strength instead of your burden. If you have been waiting for clarity, continue becoming the person you are meant to be, because genuine connections are strengthened by inner transformation before they are revealed in the outer world. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If this message resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who may need these words today. I truly appreciate your time, your presence, and your willingness to reflect on life's deeper meaning. Good luck on your journey. Take care of yourself, and until next time, keep moving forward with faith, purpose, and an open